All right, let's just dive right into this explainer and unpack exactly how the new federal budget is going to reshape the Pakistan Stock Exchange, the PSX. Whenever a new budget drops, the initial reactions are always completely chaotic. Everyone's talking at once. But our goal today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're strictly looking at the hard data to figure out the actual impact on the broader market and really zero in on which sectors have the most promising outlooks moving forward. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover, so let's just get to it. But right before we get into the nitty-gritty numbers, I actually want you to ask yourself a quick question. Just looking at the general landscape of the economy right now, which industry do you think is walking away as the absolute biggest winner this year? Is it tech, maybe textiles, or is it something a bit more foundational? Keep your guess in the back of your mind as we go through the data, because the answer really sets the tone for the entire market outlook.
To make sense of all these policy shifts, we'll use a quick scorecard approach. We're going to hit the budget's big picture, track the construction domino effect, look at boosting the export engines, check in on refineries and neutral sectors, and finally, reveal the everyday winner.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, the budget's big picture. So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. Out of every single industry on the exchange, the cement sector is positioned to benefit the most from these new policies. Literally, the most. So, if you guessed cement just a second ago, you are right on the money. Across the board, the overarching sentiment of this budget is highly, highly positive for the PSX, but cement is the undisputed standout here. Now, you might be wondering, why cement? Well, it's like a giant puzzle. To understand it, we really need to look at how these different parts of the economy interact with each other.
Which brings us right into Section 2. The construction domino effect.
Get this, we are seeing a massive 50% cut to property transaction withholding taxes. That is huge. The purchase withholding tax for real estate and REITs, real estate investment trusts, has literally been slashed in half, dropping from 2.5% all the way down to 1.25%. And it doesn't even stop there. The sales withholding tax also dropped, going from 5.5% down to 2.75%. So naturally, these massive cuts are going to drastically decrease the overall transaction costs of buying and selling property. And what happens when it costs less to transact? Boom! Real estate activity restarts.
And here is where we see that domino effect I was just talking about. Lower transaction costs lead directly to step 1. Real estate wakes up. When developers finally start building again, we naturally hit step 2. A massive, massive surge in the demand for cement. And of course, when cement moves, there's another sector that basically holds its hand, bringing us to step 3, steel. Because if construction is happening, you need cement and steel together. They work in tandem. So this entire chain reaction makes the outlook for steel, specifically long steel, highly bullish too.
Now, to add some serious fuel to that fire, we have this staggering figure. The government has maintained a 1 trillion rupee expenditure for the PSDP, their core public sector development program. 1 trillion! And that's allocated specifically with a focus on transport, energy, and water infrastructure. This basically guarantees heavy, government-backed building projects. The math here is incredibly simple, right? More construction equals more cement, and, by extension, more steel. So, between the private real estate guys waking up and the government keeping up this massive infrastructure spending, the foundation for the construction sectors is incredibly solid right now.
All right, shifting gears to Section 3, boosting the export engines. So the government just extended the 0.25% tax regime for the technology sector all the way out to 2029. Now, in the business world, and especially in tech, you know that uncertainty is the absolute enemy of growth. By locking in this incredibly favorable 0.25% rate for the next several years, the uncertainty for IT companies and tech exporters is just gone. Poof. It creates this highly stable, totally bullish environment for the tech sector to actually plan, invest, and expand without constantly looking over their shoulder worrying about sudden tax hikes.
But hey, tech isn't the only export engine getting a massive tune-up. The textile industry is seeing some incredibly positive shifts too. First off, the export surcharge completely abolished, and the minimum tax was reduced from 2% down to 1.25%. On top of that, rates for the Export Finance Scheme, the EFS, have been dropped to a super competitive 4.5%, and the repayment tenure was literally doubled, going from 9 months to 18 months. When you stack all of these wins together, it's crystal clear. The profitability and cash flows for the textile sector are going to improve significantly. It gives them so much more breathing room to operate.
Moving right along to Section 4, refineries and neutral sectors.
The budget isn't just about handing out tax cuts. Sometimes it's about tightening the rules where it really counts. They've included strict new measures specifically designed to tackle fuel adulteration. And this is a massive plus sign for the refineries. Basically, by cracking down on the shady, informal fuel supplies, the formal fuel chain gets inherently strengthened. Refineries stand to gain a ton of ground simply by having a cleaner playing field, where the formal supply chain is the undisputed standard. It's a real game changer for them.
Meanwhile, you might be wondering about the rest of the market. Well, not every sector got a massive shakeup, and honestly, it's just as important to know what's staying exactly the same. Sectors like banks, exploration and production, and fertilizers, they were treated entirely neutrally here. The status quo remains unchanged, so we aren't going to get bogged down there. In a budget that gave so many targeted boosts to construction and exports, a neutral outcome for these guys is really just a steady continuation of what they were already doing.
And finally, Section 5, the everyday winner.
Let's step away from the corporate billions for just a second. Why does this budget matter to you? Well, beyond the stock market, one of the absolute best things to come out of this whole thing is the direct tax relief for the salaried class. They adjusted the tax brackets to lower the burden on mid-tier income earners. While it's super exciting to see tech and cement booming, those are corporate-level victories. This relief directly impacts your everyday wallet. Actually, scratch that. It's more than just a win for the individual. It provides real breathing room for the consumer, which ultimately fuels the wider economy from the ground up. It perfectly rounds out what is, by pretty much every metric we've looked at, a highly positive budget.
And that brings us to the end of our analysis. The macro dominoes are falling, from property tax cuts firing up cement and steel to export relief supercharging tech and textiles. The board is officially set. The uncertainty is cleared, and we've got some very clear winners. So the final question I want to leave you with today is this. With the market totally primed and these policies locked in, where are you going to invest next? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.